My toxic husband accused me of cheating and immediately afterwards proposed to my sister, after which my parents wanted me to be a bridesmaid at their wedding. I met Jake through a friend. He was romantic and attentive for the year we dated. He proposed, and we got married fast. After the wedding, he changed. He insisted I quit my job and stay home. I did, becoming a housewife who followed his every request. I cooked, cleaned, and managed the house alone. When I asked him to help, he called it stereotypes and dismissed me. I went back to work at my old marketing job part-time. He didn't stop me but expected me to still handle all the home duties after work. Work became my escape, but Jake hated it. He started demanding I report every move I made. I had to tell him where I was, who I talked to, and when I'd be home. He forbade me from speaking to men at work. He said it was because he didn't trust them, but really, he didn't trust me. I'd get texts all day. Where are you? What's taking so long? Who's in the meeting? If I didn't answer fast enough, he'd call, and I'd have to explain myself. It wasn't jealousy, it was obsession. One day, my boss announced a corporate event. It was just a dinner for the team, nothing big. I mentioned it to Jake when I got home. He lost it. He yelled, accused me of planning to cheat, said I shouldn't have even thought about going. I hadn't even decided if I would, but that didn't matter. He kept going, saying I'd humiliated him by even considering it. I tried to calm him down, but he stormed out. He didn't come back that night. I found out later he went to his parents' place. When he finally returned, he acted like nothing happened, but the rules got stricter. No more work events, no more late shifts. I was trapped. Jake's control kept getting worse after the corporate event fight. He started checking my phone every night, scrolling through texts, emails, even my work calendar. If I had a meeting with a male coworker listed, he'd grill me about it, who they were, what we talked about, how long it lasted. I couldn't breathe without him knowing. Work was my only break from him, but even that started feeling like a cage because of his constant monitoring. I'd come home drained, and he'd still expect dinner on the table and the house spotless. I was running on empty, but he didn't care. He'd sit there, watching TV, while I scrubbed dishes, acting like it was my job to keep everything perfect for him. Then came the day that broke everything. I got home late from work, traffic was bad, and I texted him about it. He didn't respond, which wasn't unusual when he was mad. I walked in, and he was waiting in the living room, arms crossed, staring at me. Before I could say anything, he started yelling. He accused me of cheating again, said I was lying about traffic, that I'd been with someone else. I told him he was wrong, showed him the text I'd sent, but he wouldn't listen. He said I'd been acting suspicious, for weeks, that I'd been distant. I was distant because I was exhausted from his rules, but he turned it into proof of something that wasn't even happening. He grabbed his keys and left, saying he was done with me. I didn't hear from him for 2 days. I stayed in the house, trying to figure out what to do. Then my sister, Emily, called. I thought she'd be checking on me, since she knew how Jake had been acting. Instead, she sounded weird, almost giddy. She told me Jake had shown up at her place after he left, ranting about how I betrayed him. She said he'd calmed down, they talked all night, and then, get this, he proposed to her. Right there, 2 days after walking out on me. And she said yes? I couldn't process it. My husband, toxic as he was, had just proposed to my sister, and she'd agreed without even talking to me first. I hung up on her, hands shaking, wondering how my life had turned into this mess. After Emily dropped the bombshell about Jake proposing to her, I sat in shock for hours. My soon-to-be ex-husband had accused me of cheating with zero proof, stormed out, and then asked my sister to marry him, all in 2 days. And she said yes? I couldn't wrap my head around it. I'd moved out of the house by then, crashing at a friend's place while I figured out my next steps. Jake hadn't even tried to contact me, which made it clear he was serious about ending things. I didn't want him back, not after everything, but the betrayal from Emily cut deeper than I expected. We'd never been super close, but I didn't think she'd do something this low. A week later, Emily showed up at my friend's apartment. I almost didn't let her in, but she kept knocking, saying she just wanted to talk. She walked in looking nervous but determined. She told me she and Jake were planning the wedding already, fast, like in a couple of months. Then she said she wanted me to be a bridesmaid. I stared at her, waiting for her to say it was a joke, but she was serious. She went on about how it would heal the family, and show there were no hard feelings. I told her no. Flat out. I said she was insane to think I'd stand there smiling while she married the guy who just wrecked my life. She got upset, said I was being selfish, that Jake had told her I'd been the problem in our marriage. I kicked her out after that. Then my parents got involved. They called me the next day, saying Emily had told them everything. I thought they'd be on my side, but no. They said I should support my sister, that Jake was a good man, who just made a mistake with me. They believed his story, that I'd pushed him away, that I'd been unfaithful, even though there was no evidence. They kept pushing me to be a bridesmaid, saying it was my duty to keep the family together. I argued back, told them Jake had controlled me, accused me of things I didn't do, and now Emily was jumping into the same mess. They wouldn't listen. They said I was overreacting and hung up. I was done with all of them by that point. After the fight with my parents, I decided I was done trying to explain myself. Jake had poisoned everyone against me, Emily, my parents, even some mutual friends who'd taken his side without asking my version. I blocked their numbers and focused on getting my life back together. I found a small apartment across town, nothing fancy, but it was mine. Work became my lifeline. I picked up more hours at the marketing firm, and my boss was cool about it, even gave me a raise. It wasn't much, but it felt good to have something that wasn't tied to Jake or my family. Meanwhile, Emily and Jake were full steam ahead with their wedding plans. I heard bits and pieces through a cousin who still talked to me. They'd set a date for 3 months after he left me, which meant they were rushing it. I didn't care enough to wonder why, just assumed Jake wanted to lock Emily down before she saw his real side. My cousin said Emily kept asking about me, wondering why I wouldn't come around. I told her to tell Emily I wasn't interested in playing happy family with someone who'd stabbed me in the back. My cousin passed it along, and that was the last I heard from anyone for a while. I started settling into my new routine. Work, home, repeat. I didn't have much of a social life, too burned out from everything, but I was okay with that. Then one day, I got a package in the mail. It was an invitation to Jake and Emily's wedding, handwritten by her. No note, just the details, date, time, location, and bridesmaid circled in pen. I laughed at first because it was so ridiculous, then got mad. She really thought I'd show up after everything. I tore it up and threw it out. My parents called again that week, leaving voicemails about how I was breaking Emily's heart by not being there. I didn't call back. They'd picked their side, and it wasn't mine. I was starting to realize I didn't need them, or anyone who'd buy Jake's lies that I'd heard through my cousin that Jake and Emily's wedding was a week away, but I tuned it out. I didn't care anymore, or at least I told myself that. Then, out of nowhere, Jake showed up at my door. It was late, maybe 9 p.m., and I almost didn't answer the knock. When I saw him through the peephole, my stomach dropped. He looked rough, unshaven, clothes wrinkled, nothing like the put-together guy I'd known. I opened the door, ready to tell him to leave, but he started talking before I could. He said he'd made a mistake. Not just with Emily, but with me too. He admitted he'd been wrong to accuse me of cheating, that he'd let his paranoia take over. I stood there, waiting for the catch, because with Jake there was always a catch. Then he dropped the bomb. He wasn't marrying Emily anymore. He'd called off the wedding 2 days ago. I asked why, and he said he'd gotten arrested. Turns out, he'd been hiding a side gig, selling stolen electronics online. A co-worker had ratted him out, and the police caught him with a stash in his car. He'd spent a night in jail before posting bail. Emily found out, freaked, and called it quits. Now he was here, asking me to take him back. I couldn't believe it. The guy who'd controlled my life, accused me of everything under the sun, and proposed to my sister was a criminal, and a sloppy one at that. He kept going, saying he changed, that losing me and now Emily had woken him up. I didn't buy it. I told him to get out, that I wasn't his fallback plan. He begged for a few minutes, but I shut the door and locked it. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer absurdity of it. Jake, the good man my parents defended, was a fraud. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. Jake leaving my apartment that night was the last I saw of him in person, but the fallout from his arrest kept coming. My cousin called the next day with the full story. Jake's side gig wasn't some small-time hustle. He'd been moving thousands of dollars worth of stolen goods for months, maybe longer. The police had been watching him, and the coworker who snitched was part of a sting. When Emily found out, she didn't just call off the wedding, she threw him out of her place and told everyone he'd lied about everything, including me. Suddenly, the narrative flipped. My parents stopped leaving voicemails. Emily stopped sending invitations. It was radio silence from all of them. I didn't reach out either. I was still processing how Jake had played us all, me with his control, Emily with his proposal, and my parents with his, poor me, act. Work kept me busy, but I started digging online out of curiosity. I found local news articles about his arrest, complete with a mugshot. He looked pathetic, eyes red, hair a mess. The charges were serious: felony theft and possession of stolen property. Bail was set high, and I doubted he could afford it long term. Part of me wondered if he'd come to me that night looking for money, not reconciliation. It fit his pattern. A few days later, my cousin told me Emily was a wreck. She'd been telling people she felt humiliated, that Jake had ruined her life. My parents were backtracking too, saying they'd misjudged him. No one called me to apologize though. I wasn't surprised. They'd burned that bridge when they picked Jake over me. I kept my routine: work, home, sleep. But knowing Jake was facing real consequences made it easier to breathe. He wasn't just a toxic ex anymore. He was a caught one. I didn't feel bad for him. He'd dug his own hole.